Alright, so, I got a request to do this video. I initially said I wasn't going to do it because I thought it was going to be just a rehash of my earlier video on politics and labels. But, then my fiance linked me to a video by the Amazing Atheist, and, I'm going to do this vid. This is a vid on why I support Ron Paul. This is why I want Ron Paul for president. So I made a list. It's on my little netbook here. I'm going to be reading from this. It's a long list. I didn't want to forget anything. Okay, first off, he has a nickname, Dr. No. He's a medic. He is a practicing. I'm not sure if he is still practicing, but he is a doctor. And he votes no on legislation unless it is in line with the U.S. Constitution. It's kind of like a no-brainer. We shouldn't be making laws that are, in conflict with what the country was actually founded on. He has a philosophy that the proper role for government in America is to provide, this is an actual quote, to provide national defense, a court system for civil disputes, a criminal justice system for acts of force and fraud, and little else. And here's all the stuff I love about him. He predicted the recession. Before it happened, he predicted the recession. Everyone thought he was crazy. He votes against increased government spending. He wishes to decrease spending in a number of existing agencies, including the Department of Defense. I have long said, how horrible it is that the U.S., we used to be number one in all these different industries. The only thing we're still number one in? Weapons. We make stuff that kills people really well. And, it would be just awesome if some of that is channeled into actual, benevolent areas. Let's see here. Wishes to overhaul Social Security and Medicare. Older workers and retirees would be honored. Workers under 25 would have the option of opting out. People shouldn't be forced to be in these programs if they don't want to be. Here's one I love. The president's salary would be cut from $400,000 a year to $39,000 a year. I put in a promotion at my at Sears, just a regular manager's position. If I get that, I'll only be making slightly less than that, and the president would be making just that much money. And the reason for that number is a rather random number by appearance, but it's the median personal income of an American worker. And he says that should be the president's salary. And I love that. I love that. And he says that congressional pay and perks would be slashed. Get all these rich government leaders pretty much just sitting around doing nothing, destroying the country. He wishes to eliminate the income tax. Now, on the surface, sounds awesome. A little bit below the surface, people complain because people say, they need this tax. That's a whole big chunk of the government budget. But a little bit below that, he says that it is 42% of the national budget, but it wouldn't be necessary if we overhaul the government and scale back government spending just back to the year 2000, just 12 years ago. Just 12 years back, and income tax is no longer necessary. I have 20% of my paycheck taken out. Every paycheck. And it's not even necessary. Awesome. He says that money should be tied to an actual commodity. That's just a no-brainer. Making it all this, metaphorical stuff, it increases inflation and destroys the value of the dollar. Canada has a more valuable currency than the United States right now. He supports nonviolent tax resistance and nonviolent resistance of any law an individual views as unjust. Occupy Wall Street, Anonymous. He believes that prayer should not be prohibited in schools, nor should it be made compulsory. This is a simple notion called freedom of speech, people. Not freedom of speech, freedom of religion. It's, like one of the huge building blocks this country was founded on. He voted against laws prohibiting the desecration of the flag, saying that people should have the right to desecrate the flag, if they were trying to voice their opinion. But, there were states that were trying to ban it, and he voted against it. He believes the internet should be free from government regulations. That means no CISPA, no ACTA, no SOPA, no PIPA, none of this other crap. Obama, he signed ACTA. It's in effect right now. He would try to see it repealed. He supports guaranteed immunity for whistleblowers. That means if a government worker sees stuff going on and they bring it to the public's attention, that person would not be brought on charges for treason or some other bullshit. Says that gun bans only keep guns out of the hands of law-abiding citizens. It's common sense. Let's see. Believes that juries have the right to judge the law as well as the facts of a case. They should, because it's a situation by situation basis. If you kill someone, sometimes there's a good reason for it, and sometimes that won't be covered under the legal definition of murder. You never know. He supports habeas corpus. He says that habeas corpus, the right to a fair trial, should never be violated. NDAA. Obama. Yeah. Sorry. Voted against the Patriot Act. Votes against domestic surveillance. Is opposed to the reintroduction of the draft. Opposes eminent domain. Not sure if you know what that is. That's pretty much like if say an endangered species of owl is discovered in your backyard. Well, the government can come in, seize your property, give you what they say is the equivalent of your property's value, and kick you out, saying, oh, we have to protect this animal. It's living in your backyard. You can't live here anymore. Or say they discover a resource that they want to use on your property. Here's a few grand. We're taking your home. Opposes affirmative action. Now, I'm against affirmative action because it's anything but the support of equality. Pretty much it means that if a Caucasian and an African American are going for the same job or the same scholarship or something and they're both equally qualified, the African American gets it automatically because that's fair. Believes that marriage is a man and a woman, but does not think that government should regulate marriage in any regard. This shows that he has personal beliefs, but he is able to distance himself from what the government should have power over, instead of just imposing his little whimsies upon everyone else. He did vote, in fact, he did vote for the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Let's see. He voted against laws banning certain forms of sex, such as sodomy. Those do exist in some places. He is pro-life, but believes abortion policy should be handled at a state level. This would just guarantee that somewhere in the United States there would always be abortion legal. I mean, I myself am pro-life, but I am against abortion being made illegal, because if you make abortion illegal, back alley dangerous abortion rates skyrocket, and then you have 2 deaths, not 1. That's not cool. And this way, it's always legal somewhere. If you have to go a couple states over, well, people are willing to do that. This is probably the only way to make sure it is legal somewhere in the United States. Let's see, he is opposed to contraception bans. He supports stem cell research, says that capital punishment should not be used as a penalty. He says it's a deserving punishment in some cases, but it should not be used. That's pretty much exactly my belief, because, you murder someone, if you're a danger to society, you probably should be, killed. But the thing is, well, one, wastes millions of dollars in taxpayers' money with the continual appeals, plus case of O.J. Simpson and Casey Anthony, I believe her name was, just a couple of years ago. If the death penalty is on the table, it scares the jury. The jury in the Casey Anthony case said that if the penalty was just going to be life in prison instead of the death sentence, we would have found her guilty. But they didn't want to take that slim chance that they were sending an innocent person to death. You know, if someone gets sentenced to life in prison, they can always appeal the case later. If they're innocent, they can get out. Once you're dead, you're dead. And that scares people because they don't want blood on their hands. He did originally want the abolition of all public schools back in the 80s and 90s. People still say that this is his view, but actually he has developed a more moderate stance on it. He says that no polluter should be immune from the law. He agrees that when government is involved in healthcare, that costs rise and quality falls. Obamacare. He is pro-legalization of medical marijuana. He opposes the ban on drugs and is pro-legalization and regulation. What this means is that drug dealers and the war on drugs would disappear, and that overdoses would disappear because people who wanted to get their fix, they could go to a little building and they'd have a medical professional give them their fix, and then they'd be monitored while they're on their trip, and then once they're done, they'd be able to leave. They're going to do it anyway. At least they can do it safely, and there's not going to be 49 bodies found headless without hands and feet in a highway in Mexico. Yeah, that just happened. It was in the news a couple days ago because of those Mexican drug cartels. Let's see, he believes that the U.S. should not be involved in wars unless it involves self-defense. He was the only 2008 Republican presidential candidate opposed to the war in Iraq. Let's see here. He seeks more peaceful means of resolution in Iran instead of being presumptive and saying we are going to war with these people sooner or later. He pretty much says that some of the stuff we've put on them, like some of the regulations, are pretty much just antagonistic. He advocates the ending of the Cuban embargo, which would open up more trading with, foreign. He supports the reopening of the investigation on why the FBI did not act on 70-plus internal tips regarding 9/11. And he rejects the 9/11 conspiracy theories, which pretty much just proves that he's a sane individual. And yeah, so the people that support Ron Paul, according to the Amazing Atheist, are a cult. So yeah, this is why I support Ron Paul. And after all this, after all these policies, not only this, but he is a moderate. He is not a Republican. He's running Republican. But he is a libertarian. He's an independent. But you know, he's smart enough to understand that with the stupid bipartisan system that we have going, you can only run Republican or Democrat and get voted. That's the only chance you have of getting into office. But he is a libertarian. He's run as a libertarian back in the 80s. But yeah, he is a moderate. He regularly votes against the Republicans. He doesn't just follow a crowd. He votes on what he thinks is right. He's not going to be bought by the mass of a party. He's not going to be bought by lobbyists. He's not going to be bought by industrial companies. He's not going to be bought. He's going to do what he thinks is right. And that is why I support Ron Paul.